Hello, my fellow readers. My name is Greg, and this is Ghost Readers in the Sky. I'm here today to talk about some of the things that I might read for the upcoming event, March on the Rails. This event takes place during the month of March, where you can read anything at all that you like. It has to do with railroads, trains, or any of the ancillary subjects around trains and railroads. I have posted some recommendations, as have the other co-hosts of this event. I will list everybody below, but the co-hosts are Alan of Alan's Reads, Andrea of Infinite Text, and Debs from Rainer Reads Stuff. There is a group read of Paul Theroux's book, The Great Railway Bazaar. We'll be doing that on Voxer. Contact any of the hosts and we will get you into that group. It is open to anybody who wants to participate with us. The first book, and the one book that I am pretty sure I will read, is a memoir by Jack London. It came out in 1907. It's called The Road, and it is about his time spent as a hobo traveling on freight trains. It takes place mostly in the 1890s, part of the really horrible boom and bust cycles that were going on in the American economy, and so much economic desolation. So this is London, his travels by freight train, the people he meets, and just some of the reasons that this economic catastrophe has happened. I'm looking forward to this one. Next one on my list of possibilities is one by Zane Grey. It's called Union Pacific, and it was published in 1916. Zane Grey wrote this as a book that would be an epic story of the railroad expansion into the western United States, with a mystery and a kidnapping and a rescue built in. His editors changed it massively, and it was published as, instead of the Union Pacific, it was published as the UP Trail, and almost all of the railroad stuff was removed, as Zane Grey was not pleased. So a couple of years later, he published the original edition as he had intended it, called it Union Pacific. And so that's the version that I will be reading if this one comes up as one of my possibilities. The next possible book is by Graham Greene. This is called Stamble Train. It was republished later as Orient Express, so it is, you can find it under both titles. It was published in 1932. This is the story of a luxury train traveling from Ostrid to Constantinople in the 1930s. Graham Greene, of course, is best known for his spy and espionage thrillers. So you know, you put people on a train, interesting things are going to happen. The rest of my list is nonfiction, and I'm going to start with D. Brown. He's the historian who is best known for writing Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, which was a fantastic piece about the Native American view of the battle at Wounded Knee. But he wrote a lot more than just that one book. And one is called Hear That Lonesome Whistle Blow. It's subtitled The Epic Story of the Transcontinental Railroad. It was published in 1977. It is the story of the railroads as they are being constructed from the east and from the west, tended to be joined in what's now the state of Utah to become the first transcontinental railroad across the United States. Well over 3,000 miles of railroad track, but it connected parts of the country that had not been easily connected before. And there were a lot of really good things that came out of that. There were a lot of really tragic things that came out of that. The next book I may read is by Sonia Nazario. It's called Enrique's Journey. It was originally written in 2006 in Spanish. The English translation was published in 2014. It is the story of a boy from Honduras whose mother left the poverty of Honduras to go to the United States to find work. And this is his journey to find his mother. The next one, in a similar vein, by Oscar Martinez, it's called The Beast. Again, it was written originally in Spanish in 2010 and translated into English in 2013. It's about the migrant train that is known as the Beast that starts at the southern end of Mexico near Guatemala and goes all the way up to the U.S. border. And this is stories about how people migrated across Mexico through some fairly dangerous country trying to find better economic opportunities. The subtitle of this book, Riding the Rails and Dodging Narcos on the Migrant Trail. Next book is by Gary Neeleman. It's called Tracks in the Amazon. It was published in 2013. The subtitle of this book is The Day-to-Day Life of the Workers on the Madeira Mamoré Railroad. So this was started by Bolivia. Bolivia and Chile had been in a war, and in 1867, Chile was decidedly the winner, and so Bolivia was now completely landlocked. And they knew they couldn't work with Chile to get a railroad to transport goods to the Pacific, but it looked like they could get to the Atlantic by going across Bolivia, down the Madeira River, and then through the Amazon. But the last book on my list is called Iron Women. This book was written by Chris Entz and was published in 2021. So Chris Entz has gone through and looked specifically about how the railroads were built across the United States and the role that women had in that railway construction. This book has a lot of fascinating stories about the roles women played. Not a lot of construction was done directly by women. We know a lot more about what the Irishmen did building the railroad from the east and what the Chinese workers did coming from the West. And it's not that simple, but those are the main immigrant groups, and almost all the construction was done by men. But women played a major role. From the very first trains, there were medical attendants who were almost always women who were on the train. The telegraph operators were often women. So as the telegraph lines were installed and the railroads were using a lot of that same right-of-way, it was the women who were doing the communicating back and forth. There were a number of women who designed improvements to particularly to the engine and all of the smoke and soot that came out of those to make them just more bearable. But yeah, Iron Women. Stories of women, mostly in the United States, mostly during the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. Thanks for tuning in today, and until next time, my name is Greg. This is Ghost Readers in the Sky. Yippee-yi-yi.